Welcome to another edition of the conversation here at the Dakotan. I am Jonathan Starr. I am excited to be joined by Lisa Hermosillo today concerning her candidacy for the House seat in District 38. First off, thank you for joining us today, Lisa.
Yes, thank you, Jonathan, for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here as well.
Absolutely. So before we jump into the world of politics, tell us a little bit about Lisa.
Well, I'm a Midwest girl at heart. I grew up on a farm in Southwest Minnesota. And so I've always valued that because through farm life, you learn a lot about discipline and hard work and exactly what farmers bring to the economy and to communities. So
Absolutely.
I was very active in high school with sports, band, music. I kept myself very busy.
Yes, lots of fun.
And I have 4 other siblings, so from a fairly large family, and all of us were adopted. So I think that's something that's kind of unique about me.
That is very unique.
I was born in Guatemala.
Okay. Wow.
So around 3.5 years old is when I was adopted. And so my family has always immersed themselves in diversity. And I've always just, again, really admired them for that.
Absolutely.
And then after high school, I moved to Kansas and was pursuing a social work degree for about 2 years. And then I took a break and made my way out to Colorado.
Okay.
I lived in Colorado for a number of years, and I got started into property management and banking. Yes. Loved it out there. I sometimes miss it, but and then I made my way to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and I was there for about 6 years where I continued to work in property management. And then actually that's where I got my foot in the door with the Department of Veterans Affairs, which really will tie back into what we're going to be talking about a little bit later. But and then my family moved to Minot in 2020. Of course, right through the middle of the pandemic.
Very interesting time.
Oh, yeah. So then I decided to stay home with the kids and go ahead and finish out my degree.
Okay.
And I actually switched it to psychology, and it was concentrated in addiction studies. And so I'm very happy that I finally accomplished that.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
So yeah, I'm just,
You love Minot?
Absolutely. I love it. I know a lot of people, when they first heard we were going to Minot, they're like, I don't know. I hear so many bad things about it. But people here are they're genuine. And I've loved getting into the community and getting to know people. And it's a close-knit community. And if you go out there and you go meet people, you're going to make great connections, and you're going to see exactly why this community is as great as it is.
Absolutely. So one thing, if you do any research on Lisa, you find out that she's a advocate for mental health, specifically in regards to our military members. How did that come about?
So that started when I was working at the Department of Veterans Affairs. I was kind of at the front line, even though I was an MSA, which is basically the receptionist. You're kind of that first point of contact with veterans when they come in. And so I would see them every week for their appointments, and they would start to open up about, especially when I moved over to mental health, you started to kind of see some of those more difficult hardships and struggles that they had. And a lot of it was routine and repetitive with addictions and with alcohol specifically. And they would talk about a lot of the barriers that they had faced on the active side of the service. And so that's when it started to kind of spark my curiosity on, like, why do we have so many addictions or these issues with our military members? Like, what's going on? If we have someone that went into the service and didn't have these issues, and then they get out, and then we're facing things like homelessness and so I started to do my own research. I am all about research and writing and being investigative, I guess, to a sense. And so that's when I really started to do my own work on that and starting to kind of piece things together. And so, of course, that kind of just started to expand much more once we got to Minot.
Right, absolutely, with the military base here. And then last year, there was a string that was very difficult. There was 3 reported suicides that happened on base, and that actually inspired you to do a demonstration where you stood out on Broadway, I believe, for 3 days.
Absolutely.
What was the inspiration behind that?
That was just from talking to military families and people within the community. I started to realize that not a lot of people knew what was going on. They didn't know that these deaths had even occurred. And from my point of view is if the community doesn't know what's going on, how do we know how to support?
Yes.
How do we know how to help?
Right.
And there's a lot of people in the Minot community that cares a lot for the base. And it was, for me, I just kind of noticed there was kind of a disconnect.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're so close to each other. We should be able to know what's going on. And so, but from hearing from airmen and from veterans and families saying, hey, this is just the way that it is, again, that's sparked another question saying, why is there so much silence with this? Why are we not addressing this in a more constructive way? And so I decided to, initially I actually wanted to do a event on the base where people would just come together with really supportive signs saying you're loved, you matter, have a great Thanksgiving holiday, because the holidays are where we have the highest suicide rates, even outside of the military. Yeah. And the base was not on board with that. They weren't open to that. So I decided to take my efforts to the community in Minot. And so I called the Minot Police Department, cleared where I was going to be, made sure I wasn't going to cause or there weren't going to be any issues. Right. And so I thought the bridge was just a perfect way, because to me, I was trying to bridge the gap of where, what's happening, what's causing these suicides to happen. And so I thought it would just make the perfect way to embody all of that into one thing. So
if there's somebody that's listening to this podcast that is struggling with mental health or something, what would you encourage them to do?
I would encourage them to not shy away from struggling. There's actually strength in coming forward and saying that you need help, and to feel, to know that there are people out there that really do care, and that you are important, you're needed, you have a purpose in life. And right now, whatever struggles you're going through is not going to define your future. Don't let that define your future. And if you connect with the right people and with the right resources, they will encourage you to share your story. And in the end, you can be an inspiration to other people who are struggling as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. So transitioning a little bit to your declaration that you're running for the House seat in District 38.
Yes.
That's pretty exciting. So first off, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yes. Why the decision to do this?
Well, I've always had interest in politics. Growing up, I always wanted to be like an attorney, or I always just looked up to senators. I was that one kid that would come home and be reading like books about government, and my parents were like, that's an interesting passion, I guess. And, but you know, they still encouraged it, and I've always been, I guess, okay with speaking up and talking and love debates. And so with the demonstration and speaking out, people were like, wow, Lisa, you're making a difference. Like you get out there, you're not afraid to jump in and be part of the solution, or to just show people that you care. And so I had some people ask, like, have you ever thought about running for public office? Wow. And I initially had contacted the Democratic MPL just to see how I could get involved, and whether it was helping with campaigning. And they said, we've actually heard about you. Wow. And I think you would actually be a great candidate. So that's neat. At this point, I said, I've put myself out there. Why not? I'm up for the challenge. So
that's awesome. Very neat. What are some of the key issues that you are building on in your campaign?
First off, we've already talked about would be the mental health accessibility on the military side, as well as for veterans, trying to find a way to reduce wait times. That's one of the biggest issues, is people are having to wait months to get an appointment, and that is hindering and crippling people's ability to get the help that they need. And if we can somehow find incentives for even VA providers to stay longer, because from just in the Minot community, veterans have said, we have too much turnover in providers. And so when I start start with a provider and I get close and we bond, then they leave. And that's been really hard on them. But to reduce the wait time across the board, and to increase telehealth services to rural areas as well, making sure that they have access. A second one is going to be childcare. This has been a huge one even from last year. There was a lot of conversation coming up about that. And we have a huge problem at the base with that, as well as in town, finding adequate childcare, and one that's affordable. And so that, I think, is hurting the economy, because if spouses are prevented from going out into the workforce
Right.
because of the cost,
Mhm.
we've got to figure out a way to increase pay for the childcare workers as well, which,
Yeah.
I, yeah,
It's a double-sided problem
it
issue
is.
for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So mental health, childcare, are those the two main pillars?
Well, then there's the big tax,
Yeah.
the property tax debate.
Yep.
And of course, I would advocate against that, because I think a lot of people need to do research and to really understand where that tax money goes to. And if we pull that away, how many families are actually going to be devastated by that?
Right.
And so it's going to hurt the community more. And there's got to be, like I said, I'm all about finding balance. There's got to be a way to compromise on this, because I don't think taking it completely away is the right way to go about it.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, the tax with the measure that's going on, or the attempt to make that a measure, is definitely going to be an interesting conversation this political season.
Yeah.
That's definitely needs to be thought through. So I'm sure you've dreamed for a moment. This happens, you get elected. What are some of the first things that you would want to do when you were in Bismarck down there? Maybe joining committees. Do you have any targets that you're going for?
So I would have to look into that.
Yeah,
more
absolutely.
of what committees are available, but absolutely, I'm a go-getter. I'm motivated. I love to learn and grow, and so I'm looking at this as the perfect opportunity to do just that.
Right.
And so, yeah, like you mentioned, joining committees, seeing where I'd be a good fit, and of course, even getting elected would show that they're North Dakota is willing and excited to have a different side of perspectives in there. So I'm excited to show that, hey, even having a Democrat person in there, we can still get things done and find that I'm going to be a person that can be balanced and listen to both sides. And
absolutely,
so that would be something I'm really excited to see happen. So
yeah, for sure, I can imagine. Which brings us to some conversations at the state level. This year has brought a lot of changeover in North Dakota politics. Obviously, Burgum ran for president, and then he says that he's not running for a third term as governor. Kelly Armstrong which is our U.S. representative, announces that he'll be running for governor.
Yep.
So obviously, he has a lot of name ID, so that will be a very competitive race, whoever runs against him for governor. But that leads a House seat that really there's not been a strong contender name that's put their name in. We have Trig Hammer that's put his name in. We have Rick Becker and we have Tom Campbell, and Rick Becker and Tom Campbell are not sitting like state representatives or anything like that right now. So it's a very open race. I say all that to ask this. What is your view of the stability of North Dakota politics compared to previous years? And is there finally a better opportunity than perhaps in past races for a Democrat to get to one of those state positions once again?
Jonathan, that's a great question. And I think that's something everyone is wondering about too.
Yeah, right.
And I think this is a positive thing. I think this is a good thing because, like you mentioned, even with the term limits, we're going to see an influx of newer people coming in. And I think that's going to bring new perspectives, new ideas, and innovative, even bills going to this at the state level. And I think that's what we need. I think we need more people stepping up to the plate and deciding to run. And I hope in the mix of this that we'll see, I go back to balance, because I think too much of one thing is not always constructive and brings good results. So I'm hoping that we'll see much more of a balance in this and see new faces. And I'm really looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
So
you bring up term limits, which is an interesting conversation. It sounds like you're a fan of term limits. What's your view on that?
I would say I'm kind of in the middle on this, because if you do a great job and people are voting for you, I feel like you should be kind of entitled to that, because people have voted for you. But at the same time, depending on you shouldn't just vote for somebody because they've been in there for so long, because
Right.
you're comfortable with it. You
And-
need to do your research and
Right.
get to know other candidates and say, hey, I've been voting for this person for 15 years. Why am I?
Right,
And,
yeah.
and look at the other candidate and say, is it time to get new ideas? I think to just, there's a good, sorry, I can't get my words right here, but
You're fine.
there's positive things and beneficial things that can come from a wave of different
Yeah, absolutely.
perspectives. So
you go and you look at some of the retirements this year. One of them, District 40, Minot, Karen Kresbach, which fantastic. All credit to her, but she was in there for a long time. She was in there, I
Right.
believe the year I heard was 89. So that puts over 30 years in office, and that's a long time. That's spanning generations. That's spanning a lot of different change in the world that's happened. And so, and I think she did a great job. Whatever, I'm not really commenting about her run in office, but what I'm saying is, like, it comes a point where it's very difficult to run against them.
Yeah.
And so that's where the term limits hopefully has that balance that could come in.
Yep,
But,
I agree.
But it is an interesting thing. I don't know how I feel about term limits, but it's done.
We'll
So,
see what happens.
If someone wants to support Lisa, how should they do that?
Well, I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. It's Lisa Hermosillo for North Dakota House District 38. And then I'm on Instagram. That's Lisa Hermosillo for North Dakota House. That's what I have set up right now as I build my campaign and get everything ready with marketing. And I'll probably unfold a little bit more for people to get a hold of me. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very good. And if they want to ask you a question, they should just go there and hit the Facebook message or something?
Yeah, absolutely. I have business cards that are going to be coming in soon, but the ones that I have on there, it says directly like contact or connect with me.
Okay.
And I genuinely mean that. I want all the feedback that someone can give to me because I'm open to that, and it'll help me grow as well as a candidate. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking time to connect and to do this podcast together today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
For sure. Thank you for watching this episode of The Conversation here at The Dakotan, brought to you by Shock Safe and Lock. I'm Jonathan Starr. Be sure to stop by mydakotan.com, click Election Central. You'll be able to find a list of all the candidates in this year's election cycle. You'll be able to see interviews like this and other news as it comes up. Thank you again for watching. Like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.